most of the countries in Europe had like rebellions, and they all like called themselves Young, and then their country name.
There you
So
go.
like,
Perfect.
oh,
Perfect. So Young Ireland is the name of a specific rebel group, right? Okay. So we're building Irish nationalism. We're building towards this push for independence. We have the Battle of the Widow McCormick's Cabbage Patch, which doesn't go very well, right? Um, in addition to the political growth, we're also going to get a religious growth in Ireland at the time. So we're going to get a resurgence of the Catholic Church. Now, for hundreds of years, the British have been trying to squash the Catholic Church in Ireland, and they've been trying to get rid of it. They've been trying to convert people, right? And so Irish Catholic identity has kind of fallen apart. Okay, it's kind of fallen apart because A, the British have been trying to squash it. B, the Catholic Church itself has been kind of falling apart for the last couple hundred years, right? After the scientific revolution, after the invention of industrialization, religion is just not as powerful as it used to be, right? The Catholic Church used to control all of Europe, but after the Protestant Reformation, they lost half of Europe, right? So the Catholic Church has been, falling for this entire time. Paul Cullen here, Paul Cullen, the man in the picture here, he is the most important of this like Catholic resurgence figures in the time period. He becomes the Archbishop of Dublin in 1850, right after the famine. And then he also is going to eventually become the first Irish cardinal in 1866. Now, are any of you guys Catholic? You guys know about the organization of the church, how it's organized? No? Tiffany, are you Catholic by chance?
I am.
You're the only one who might be Catholic. The other ones I already know are not. Do you know what a cardinal is, Kit? So?
Yes and no. I just know that they're higher up in the church, but I kind of haven't been to church in a while, so I don't remember.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. So the rest of you, I know you're not Catholic, so let's just give it to you now, okay? The Catholic Church has on the top a leader, and the leader is called a pope, P-O-P-E, pope, okay? Today it's Pope Francis, right? So the pope is the leader. Underneath the pope is a council of cardinals, which is usually like about 150 leaders, right? And they're all attached to a geographic region of the world, right? So you have like the cardinal of, California, or the cardinal of Boston, the cardinal of New York, the cardinal of, the Philippines has like 3 cardinals, the cardinal of Australia, right? Stuff like that. So you have cardinals from around the world. This is the first time that we're going to start getting cardinals in other parts of the world. And this is the first time that Ireland is going to have a cardinal. And so Cullen becomes the first cardinal from Ireland. Okay. They are the guys who are one level below the Pope. Is that, you guys with me on that? Okay. All right. Now, he is really, really important for the history of the Catholic Church. He's one of the more important non-popes in the Catholic Church's history. He holds something called the Synod of Thurles. The Synod of Thurles in 1850. Thurles is a town in southern Ireland. It's a town in Ireland. Okay. And a synod is like a meeting of the Catholic leadership. It's a meeting of the Catholic leadership, but it doesn't happen all the time. Like it's not like Mormons, right? Mormons have general conference twice a year, right? Catholics do synods like once every like 3 or 4 decades. They don't do them very often. Not very often. They're a much, much slower timeline. Okay. So they hold the Synod of Thurles, and Cullen is the guy leading it. And in the Synod of Thurles, he enacts reforms for the entire Catholic Church, the whole globe, the worldwide Catholic Church. And what this does here is it makes it so that the entire Catholic Church is going to become more standardized. It's going to become the leadership is more standardized, the church services are more standardized, the prayers are more standardized, right? They're trying to like bring the entire church into one central identity. And this is what they're attempting to do in the face of industrialization, right? Because a lot of people are abandoning faith in industrialization. They just don't need it anymore. And so he's trying to do this. Ideally, what's supposed to happen is that as a Catholic, I should be able to attend a church service in Dublin or in Manila, Philippines, or in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and the service will be the same all around the world, right? I can sit down, I can do the same prayer, I can go through the same motions, I know how to respond to the priest, right? Regardless of what language the priest speaks, I should be able to do everything. Okay? Cullen is what we call ultramontane. This means that he supports the power of the Pope. And what he's doing here is he's unifying the entire Catholic Church, but he's doing it in Ireland, in the back, in Ireland's own backyard, in the little town of Turles. This is causing a huge religious revival amongst the Irish. That the Irish are really, really getting into this religious identity. Okay, if you think about this with Tagore, right, or Bernadette Tagore, or I'm sorry, not Tagore, Tulloch, Bogandgar Tulloch, right? Tulloch is giving us Indian identity equals Hindu, right? Poland is now giving us Irish identity equals Catholic, right? It's that same kind of motion that we're walking through on this. Okay. All right. This is going to cause a huge revival. This is also going to cause a big revival in the building of schools across Ireland, Catholic schools across Ireland. The Catholic Church has always been kind of in the school business, for hundreds of years, but now they're really, really going to get into the school business, especially across Ireland. They're going to build thousands and thousands of schools across Ireland, which is a ton, especially they're going to build something like 10,000 schools, which is a ton of schools for Ireland, right? Ireland does not have that many people. So, 10,000 schools is a lot of schools, right? A lot of schools. The Irish people are ready for this resurgence, right? The potato famine was so destructive, so damaging, so corrosive and destructive to Irish identity that the Irish are looking for something new. That new thing is coming in politics with Young Ireland, and now it's also coming in faith. Okay? All right. This is where we're going to start trying to turn that new identity into change. So the next big number, what are we on? J? K? What are we on? Should be something like J or K. What are we on? Yash, what number are we on?
I'm not too sure.
J.
J. Drew says J. Drew's never lied to me before, so I believe him. All right. Okay, so J. So this is J, Irish Tenant League. They're going to try to turn this newfound, nationalism into something meaningful. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to get the Ulster custom to become law. They're going to try to get the Ulster custom to become law. Now, what's the situation with land in Ireland? Who owns the land? Raoul, who owns the land? What do we know about land ownership there?
Only the Protestants can own land.
Right. The Catholics are renters in their own land, right? Your own family farm has now become owned by someone else. So the Ulster custom is a tradition that protects the renter. It protects the tenant on the land. And the tenant has the 3 Fs. The 3 Fs. They have a fair rent, a fixity of tenure, and free sale. So fair rent means that the landlord cannot raise your rent faster than a certain amount, right? More than a certain percentage every year. The fixity of tenure means, this one's the really sticky one. This means that the renter is allowed to stay in the property for as long as they're paying the rent. So you can't just kick them out. You can't just kick them out for nothing. Like if I want to sell the house that you're living in, right? As long as you're paying rent, I can't sell the house. Right? If you miss your payment, you're out. I can get you out, right? But as long as you're making payments, it's fine. And then free sale means that the renters can sell their contract to someone else. Kind of like subletting, but not exactly, right? With subletting, like if I'm renting a place and then I let Raul stay there while I leave, for a year, my name's still on the contract. Raul is just paying the rent, right? But in this case, I would actually sell my contract to Raul. Raul would take over and I would be probably dead, is what usually happens, right? Usually it's like I'm giving the contract to my son or my grandson or something. That's usually what we're talking about. So the Ulster custom is something that's kind of unifying Ireland. They all want this. Ireland is particularly upset about these land rules. They want their land back. But this is something that the British are going to resist. And the British do not want this, and this does not get passed. This does not get passed, which is another sticking point for the Irish, okay? So at this point, we have a whole island of people who are getting pretty upset at the British. Enter the Republican Brotherhood, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, big number K. Big number K, the Irish Republican Brotherhood. All right, so the Irish Republican Brotherhood is, young Ireland is gone. They're all arrested or dead. And so the Irish Republican Brotherhood is going to step in and they're going to organize themselves as a resistance group, as a pro-independence resistance group. And these guys are going to particularly believe in armed resistance. Okay? They also have a sister organization called the Fenian League. The Fenian League is a league that's created in New York. And it's the diaspora branch of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. Right? The Irish diaspora is huge at this point, right? The diaspora is bigger than the population of Ireland, right? New York City by itself has more Irish than Ireland does. Okay, that's actually still true today, right? I think Boston has more Irish than Ireland does too. Okay, so the Irish diaspora is massive, and in the United States, a bunch of these Irish guys, they hear what's going on at home, and they're really, really upset about it, and so they form something called the Fenian League, and the Fenian League is allied with the Irish Republican Brotherhood. These two organizations are so closely allied that collectively they're called Fenians. So Fenian is a term for a member of either of these groups. And you'll notice a lot of these guys, Ohio, New York, right? A lot of these guys are coming from the United States. These guys are mostly Civil War veterans. So they're people who immigrated to the United States during the Civil War, at the beginning of the Civil War, and then in most cases, New York drafted them right into the war and they fought in the Civil War. At the end of the Civil War, they got to keep all their weapons and stuff, right? And so at the end of the Civil War, they just took all their weapons, and then their plan is to load all those weapons and head back to Ireland and overthrow the government of Ireland. That's their plan, right? So they come up with this awesome plan where O'Mahony, O'Sullivan, and Kelly are going to load up all their Civil War weapons. They're going to get on these ships and they're going to head over to Dublin, and they're going to overthrow the government of Dublin, and they're going to demand independence from the evil British. Okay. Now, why did the Young Ireland fail? Why did their rebellion fail? Michael, do you remember why Young Ireland's rebellion failed?
Uh, oh, their information, like their plans, got leaked before they could do anything significant with
Okay.
them.
Did they get leaked or did something else happen? Yeah, Drew?
Somebody published it in one of the newspapers.
Yeah, they leaked it themselves by publishing it in the newspapers. Well, the Irish Republican Brotherhood and the Fenian League do the same thing. And they published it in the newspapers in an effort to try to recruit people. They start publishing it in all these newspapers, and the British buy a newspaper, and they find out about it. So we get the Fenian Uprising of 1867, which basically doesn't happen. So the Fenian Uprising results in all these people being arrested before they're even able to actually, they're all arrested before they're able to do anything. And the British intercept the American ships and arrest the Americans, the Irish Americans, before they're even able to do anything. The Fenians did invade Canada, though. That's cool, right? Their plan was to invade Canada and take over Ottawa and hold Canada hostage, in order to get Ireland's freedom, right? So that's pretty cool. Like if you're going to take a hostage, right? Like aim high, right? Like take a good hostage, like the entire country of Canada. It's pretty excellent. It's an excellent plan, except for they told everyone and got caught. So if you listen to Irish people talk about this, they'll talk about this as like a glorious uprising, but it didn't actually happen, right? It gets kind of stopped before it even happens. But it does result in a couple of other unifying events. And these are two unifying events that are, I think, going to give you a nice flavor of what's going to happen. Whoops. All right, so the first one is these Manchester martyrs. So the Manchester martyrs here, and make this a new letter, L, right? So the Manchester, dang it should have been an M, missed opportunity. All right, so the Manchester martyrs is a group of these three men. These three men were Fenians, and they had escaped arrest. They didn't get arrested, they escaped, and they are hiding out in England. They're hiding out in Manchester. And they get arrested for petty crime, just thievery. They're just like burglarizing things. And then eventually the cops figure out who they are, that these guys are like Brotherhood members, Fenian Brotherhood. And so they're getting transferred from the minimum security thief prison to the maximum security terrorist uprising prison, right? And while they're getting transferred, they're being transported in a prison cart, right? A prison cart with the guards and horses and things, right? And the Brotherhood shows up on the streets of Manchester, and they hold guns up to the prison guys, and they get in a fight. They end up shooting one of the horses and stuff, and they end up getting in this fight. And over the course of the fight, one of the Irish Republican Brotherhood guys can't get the door open, so he decides to shoot the lock, right? Because he's like, watched movies and he thinks it works, right? And so he decides to shoot the lock. Unfortunately for him, a guard is on the inside of the cart looking through the keyhole at the same time, trying to see what's happening. And I think you see what's going to happen here. He gets shot in the head. And so they killed a guard. The guard dies, and one of the women inside of the cart, the cart had more than just these three. It had like 12 prisoners, including like 3 women and a 10-year-old boy. Yeah. Anyway, one of the women in the carts gets the keys off of the guard, flips the keys through the window, and then they're able to open the door, and then they escape. Right? They escape. It's a glorious escape. Unfortunately, they killed a cop. And they actually get arrested like the next day. Yeah. Once you kill a cop, of course, all of the police come out to find you. And so they get arrested the next day. They get put on a very, very hasty trial. The trial lasts about as long as it takes to build the gallows, where they're having someone just build gallows and then they hang the three guys. These three guys are going to get known as the Manchester Martyrs. This like symbol here, this image of them is going to become this like unifying thing where they get put into the shamrock, and the harp is the symbol of Ireland. And you know, their images are going to be painted across the country and stuff, because they're going to go down in Irish stories as being martyrs for the cause, as these guys who were executed when they shouldn't have been executed. This is related to what we're going to call the Clerkenwell outrage. Clerkenwell, keep this in the same big number N or L. So Clerkenwell is a maximum security prison in London. And it's very famously difficult to break into, right, or break out of, right? Famously, it's like a maximum security prison, and it has like 4-foot thick walls of granite, of like solid granite, right? So it is like the biggest, thickest walls you're gonna get. Inside this prison is a bunch of Irish Brotherhood people. So the Fenians decide to go blow this up in order to get their guys out. And so they bring up a cart full of about 24 barrels full of black powder in an attempt to blow up the wall and get the guards and get their guys out. Okay. The problem here, they blow up these barrels and it ends up sending shock waves through the entire block. It bursts out windows up and down the block for like 2 blocks in every direction. It shatters all the windows. It ends up injuring people, 120 people injured, 12 people dead, all over the place. And most of the dead are just like innocent people living in the house next door, right? Living in the house like across the street and stuff. And it's just innocent people, and it kills a whole bunch of people, including the people who set off the explosion. They killed themselves. Yeah, they killed themselves. They did not succeed in breaking their friends out of jail. They did not succeed because 4-foot walls of granite are, you know, apparently tougher than 24 barrels of black powder. Okay. These are both examples of kind of the nature of how this Irish rebellion is, right? I'm giving you these as examples of what Irish rebellion looks like. Okay, Indian rebellion looks like big giant satyagrahas, right? Of like, you know, thousands and thousands of people in the streets of blocking things, right? South African rebellion ends up turning into race riots, right? South African rebellion ends up turning into like student protests and stuff. American rebellions are usually student protests or sit-ins, right? Or like marches and stuff like that. The Irish Rebellion is earlier than those movements, and the Irish Rebellion is blowing things up, right? It's killing people and blowing things up. This is kind of a different thing. Now, as bad as this is, the British actually come away with a little bit of sympathy for the Irish. There's a contingent within the British society where they're saying that the Irish are being mistreated and that they need to be treated better, and they need to be taught how to become civilized, right? That the British are saying it's our duty to teach them how to be civilized. We can't expect them to be civilized by themselves. So they decide that they're going to start reforming Ireland in an attempt to civilize Ireland, in an attempt to bring them up. That's the British goal. Yash, what's the lesson that the Irish are actually getting from this?
That they're like below the British, and that the British are superior to them, and therefore they need to like teach them how to do stuff.
No, that's not the Irish lesson. What's the Irish lesson?
If we blow up things, we're not going to be in super big trouble.
Bingo. the Irish lesson is blowing things up works, right? Killing people and blowing things up works. Yeah. So the Irish are going to form something called the Land League, the Irish Land League. And the Land League, the Irish start looking at this and they start thinking, internalizing this message. Blowing things up works. And so the Land League is trying to reform all these land laws. Okay. The Land League is going to be formed by these two guys. Charles Stewart Parnell and John Redmond. So Parnell is a Protestant, which is why he's in orange. And Redmond is a Catholic, which is why he's in green. And Redmond is by far the more important one. Redmond is going to end up becoming the leader of Ireland for a period of like 20 something years. So he's the more important of them. But these guys are both trying to push for a reform of the land laws in Ireland. They actually get a lot of success here. They are actually going to get a series of land acts that eventually start turning the land over to the Irish. It takes a while. But at this point in time, 95% of the land or 95% of the Irish people do not own land. And by the time we get to independence, that number will be exactly flipped. 95% of Irish people own land, right? So that's good. It's good. It will work. This is an example of this working, right? They're going to form the IPP, the Irish Parliamentary Party, which is going to be the largest party for a while, for quite a long time. It'll be the largest party. This is the symbol of the IPP. That's the harp is the symbol of Ireland. Unfortunately for them, this is going to come to a screeching halt in 1882. Okay, in 1882, we're going to have a big problem here. So Prime Minister Gladstone, the guy here looking like a Disney villain, right? Prime Minister Gladstone is the leader of the UK, and he's sympathetic to the Irish. He's about as sympathetic as the Irish are going to get, right? As far as leaders go, he's about as sympathetic as the Irish can expect. And he is supporting the Land Acts, and he's also, at least on the surface, going to support home rule also, where the Irish are going to be able to rule themselves. He appoints, because he wants Ireland to be successful, he appoints his personal apprentice. Okay, it's his personal friend and his apprentice, Lord Frederick Cavendish. And so he appoints Mr. Banana here, Lord Frederick Cavendish. He appoints him to become the leader of Ireland. Now, Cavendish travels from London to Dublin, right? Takes a ship, goes over to Dublin. And as he arrives in Dublin, Cavendish and his assistant are walking through Phoenix Park, which is the big park in the middle of Dublin, right? It's like Central Park is, you know. They're walking through the big park in the middle of Dublin, where a group of radicals called the Irish National Invincibles, pretty good name, huh? The Invincibles, they come and stab Cavendish to death and kill him. And they kill Cavendish and his assistant in the park. Now, who are these Invincibles? The Invincibles were too extreme to be in the Fenians. The Fenians kicked them out. The Irish Brotherhood kicked them out. So they stab and kill Cavendish, the new leader of Ireland. Cavendish was in office for 4 hours. He was now in office for 4 hours before the Irish stabbed him and killed him. This is going to cause a huge backlash because, first of all, Gladstone's going to turn on the Irish. He is pretty upset about this. He's pretty upset about this. He withdraws his support and he no longer wants to work with the Irish. So they're going to lose the support of probably the most friendly prime minister that they have had. Okay. So they're going to lose his support. They're also going to lose a lot of support amongst the Irish people themselves. This is where we're going to get into something called the long wait. And the long wait is going to be a period of about 30 years where the Irish independence movement is basically dead. Where the independence movement is basically dead. Okay, and it's because of public backlash here. We got like 10 minutes. Okay, you are almost caught up to this class. All right, I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna stop here because this is quite a bit of stuff. But you guys are almost caught up. You're just like one slide behind the in-person class. Now, Drew, you're moving to in-person next week, right? All right, I'm gonna stop recording because I don't think people need to hear this part.